What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. And in this video, I'm going to talk about something different. I'm going to switch over to the NFL and talk about some of the big storylines that are going on over there. So first, I want to start off with Kyler Murray's contract because it's a big story, not only because it's a fat amount of money, it's a huge amount of money, but it's also a pretty controversial story because the Cardinals put in a clause that has now been taken out that in order for Kyler to get all his money or whatever to fulfill his contract, he has to do 4 hours of independent film study a week, I think it was. And so that's just a pretty glaring thing to note, that your franchise quarterback, Kyler Murray, the guy who won Rookie of the Year, has made multiple Pro Bowls, may not have the best study habits off the field, but it doesn't really look like that on the field because when he's healthy and producing, he looks really good. But it's just interesting to think about how, I don't know, like you have to incentivize your quarterback to study off the field. So just to break down the contract, I believe it's a 5-year deal for $230.5 million. Obviously a lot of money. One of the bigger contracts in the league, up there with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I think Aaron Rodgers is making a lot of money this year. And so I think in order for Kyler Murray to justify this contract, multiple things has to happen. One, he has to stay healthy this year, and because when he's not on the field, obviously the Cardinals have no chance to do anything. But he also has to stay healthy to avoid these like slow finishes to the season the Cardinals have, because last season, I believe the Cardinals started out 7-0 or 8-0, and they just like fell short down the stretch. They won that Dallas game. That was a big game to help them like sort of regain their momentum. But the week before, I believe they struggled with, or they lost to the Lions, and that was just a completely horrible performance. And Kyler is really going to have a chance to back this contract up this year, because he'll be without DeAndre Hopkins for those first 6 weeks of the season due to his PED suspension, his number one target. And then when we last saw the Cardinals, they looked awful in the playoffs against the Rams, who did go to the Super Bowl. So you can kind of say that the Rams were just destined to beat everyone in their path last year. But for Kyler's playoff debut as a number one quarterback, it really didn't look that good. And it also means a lot for Cliff Kingsbury, because if they can't make this work in Arizona this year, you can maybe think about Cliff Kingsbury's job status being up in the air. Because once again, the last 2 years, the Cardinals had those great starts, those amazing starts to the season, but they couldn't quite finish it off, and left a lot of fans disappointed going into the playoffs. So yeah, that's a really big storyline. I think Kyler Murray, they had to give him that contract because it's not often that you can find a quarterback who's 24 years old and can move like him and can throw like him. I think he's a really good thrower of the football. He makes a lot of really good athletic plays. And so I think he's only going to get better as long as he stays healthy. So the Cardinals definitely had to give him that contract, and I wasn't surprised at all when he got paid. But the contract brought up concerns for another quarterback who's looking to get paid, Lamar Jackson, obviously an MVP winner, a guy that's done a lot since he's been in the league. And last year was a tough year for Lamar and the Ravens because in the offseason they had a ton of injuries before the season even started. They lost J.K. Dobbins, their best running back, their really good running back who had a solid rookie season coming out of Ohio State. They lost him for the year before it even started, and he was a big piece to what they did in the running game the previous year when they beat the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs. And then on defense, they lost Marcus Peters for the entire season, and that was also before the year. And then during the season, they just had a bunch of other injuries to the team that included Lamar Jackson getting hurt. And at one point, even through all these injuries, the Ravens were the number one seed in the AFC. So that just shows you how good the Ravens are in terms of their coaching, their players in general. But the big thing to that is Lamar Jackson, and I think that's a huge reason why Lamar Jackson deserves to get paid, because even though if you want to argue he's not as good a thrower of the football as he needs to be, that's fine. But you can't deny the impact that he has on his team, his teammates, and Baltimore's success. Baltimore's been a great team. Obviously, we all remember that one season they went 14-2, and Lamar was shattering records all over the place, and he won his first MVP, and that was his first full season starting in the league. He was an MVP, so that should just tell you the potential that this guy has at the position, and he's only going to get better as a thrower. And if the Ravens want to see him get better as a thrower and they still have questions about what he can do, they need to go out and get some quality receivers. They lost Hollywood Brown. We don't know how good Rashad Bateman is going to be. He kind of had an up and down rookie season, so he should be a guy that should contribute for them this year. But I think they also need to sign some marquee guys. I don't know who's available off the top of my head, but the receivers are going to have to make a difference in Baltimore and make Lamar's life a little bit easier. And I don't really buy into this notion that wide receivers don't want to play with Lamar. I think they're just a little... I'm sure they would love to have him as a teammate. I'm sure he's a hard worker, a great guy, but I don't know. It's just... I think he's not necessarily being set up for success to become a better passer, more so than he's not putting in the work. Because I definitely believe he's putting in the work to get better at throwing the football, because he comes across as a very hard worker and a guy who wants to do everything he can to bring us another Super Bowl to Baltimore. And so that'll be a very interesting story in terms of when Lamar gets paid, how much he gets paid, what it does to the quarterback market, because as we all know, this is how it works in sports, in football in particular, and for every position. The guy always wants to be the highest paid, whether you believe they should be valued at that amount or not. And so whatever Lamar Jackson gets paid, I'm sure it's going to be at or a little bit higher than what Kyler Murray got, or around what Josh Allen got, because I believe the Ravens aren't going to let him slip away. You can't even consider letting a quarterback like Lamar Jackson hit the open market. That'd be ridiculous. And so one last storyline that I want to touch on is Julio Jones signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As we all know, Julio at his peak for peak, is one of the greatest wide receivers we've ever seen, in terms of a guy who's 6'3", 220, who can run like a gazelle, runs every route, good after the catch. And he was really good in Atlanta, and injuries kind of caught up to him. He decided to leave the Falcons, signed with the Titans, and was kind of disappointing in Tennessee because he wasn't really healthy during his stint there. And so now he's going to Tampa with Brady coming back from his retirement, and he's going to try and help contribute there with Chris Godwin being injured. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to sort of prove himself again as an elite receiver, if you want to call him, in the NFL, because I still think he has some stuff left in the tank. He had some other teams that were interested in him. And so I think Julio Jones signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is a pretty big deal, because this is a guy who is missing a Super Bowl ring from his resume and is clearly going to be a Hall of Fame player when he retires. I don't know if he's going to be first ballot, but he's going to be Hall of Fame, and I think he's going to have a chance to make a splash in Tampa Bay this year with the Buccaneers. So it'll be very interesting to see how he plays. I'm sure he's already getting in reps with Brady in practice and stuff, so they should be good in terms of chemistry. So it'll be interesting to see how Tampa Bay uses him and what kind of success he can contribute. And so yeah, those are the 3 NFL topics that I wanted to discuss in this video. Thanks for watching, and make sure to follow my other content that'll be in the description. Thanks for watching.